Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Femme Portfolio podcast. I'm your co host, Bryn Bradshaw Mack.
And I'm Rachel Hirsch.
And today we have my dear friend, the lovely Dana Ariele, a hormone health coach and just guru in all things women's health, health in general, and just making yourself feel better. So, why don't we kick things off? Dana, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you to Rachel and Bryn for having me today. I'm so excited to chat all things. A little bit about me is, like Bryn said, I'm a holistic hormone health coach, and I'm also currently studying to become a fertility awareness and sexual health and reproductive educator. I got laid off from my job in the beginning of COVID, and that's when everything changed for me. I found the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and I decided this is for me. I need to become a health coach. And through that journey, I really went on my health journey and dealt with a lot of gut issues. And in healing my gut, I decided I need to go back to school to study gut health. And I got to this place in my gut where I was feeling really good, but not awesome. I wasn't great. I knew there was something I was missing. And so I went back to school to study hormone health. And then I was like, oh, this is the topic that I could study for the next 30 years and not get bored. And that's really what led me into the fertility space as well. So now I've been coaching for over 4 years, which is wild for me to say. And I've been working for myself full time for over 3. That's kind of what got me here today.
What does that practically mean? So, what are you doing day to day with the people you coach?
Mm-hmm. So my schedule looks different day to day. I love to have Mondays and Fridays as my self admin days, and I take clients Tuesday through Thursdays. So it always depends week to week, but I see certain clients weekly. I see others monthly, some every other week. I love to have my mornings slow and to myself, but practically working with clients, every single one looks different, and I'm sure we'll kind of dive into some of that today too.
Yeah, I want to dig in more to what you talk about with your clients without disclosing any details that you can't disclose.
Or I can tell you everything while keeping everybody anonymous.
We love that.
What is it like working between health coaching? What are kind of the buckets? I know gut health is a huge priority of yours. What are the buckets of clients you like to take on, and what does that cycle look like from initially engaging with a client to letting them go free?
Yeah. So I love having potential client calls. I mean, people find me on the internet. If someone finds me on TikTok or Instagram, or I feel that most of my clients I create from connections in person and meeting people at events, establishing relationships. But how it works is we hop on an initial consultation call, and it's kind of like a date. We're interviewing each other, to see if it's a good fit. I am coaching them, and we're really diving in. My biggest goal in a discovery call with someone is that I can identify okay, this is probably a root cause issue that we can begin to address together. And I can really tell that depending on somebody's symptoms. So let's say I have a beautiful discovery call. Someone is like, okay, I would love to work with you. Depending on what they're going through, I would recommend a different program for them. Mostly, I work with clients in my signature program. It's called Hormone Health Foundations. It's a 12-week program that combines lab testing with science-backed step-by-step methods to really help you balance your hormones, along with mindset coaching and community. Or I work one-on-one with people, and everyone gets access to the Hormone Health Foundations because that's really where all the good stuff is. But so yes, once they join in, they got onboarded, and then depending on their tier of support that they choose, we'll have a kickoff call, certain one-on-ones scheduled along the way, or they dive into the video modules, or I'm working with them in person. They come over to my apartment. So it really just depends on the person in the program. And then, yeah, I mean, through Hormone Health Foundations, I do 3 one-on-one sessions, and the third session is the last one, obviously. And that's where I like to say we create your hormone healthy game plan together. How are we moving forward out of this program? Do you feel like you can, take on the world and have happy, healthy hormones without me? And I've never had a situation everyone's like, Dana, this is what I've learned for the last 12 weeks. I don't need to create a new plan now. So it's really a close the loop.
Do you have a specialty of coming off birth control or PCOS or perimenopause or just across the hormone spectrum?
Right now, it really is across the hormone spectrum. Most of my clients are desiring to come off of hormonal birth control, or they have recently come off and they're like, hell.
I know that's
Or
happening.
once I am educating a lot, people decide, I think actually I really want to come off of hormonal birth control. So that's been a really big theme lately with my clients. I've worked with clients with PCOS. Most of my clients just are dealing with like really extreme bloating every day. They have no idea why. They are constantly exhausted. They either like can't fall asleep or they're up like when they wake up, they can't get back to sleep. They are crashing at 3 p.m. after lunch. They have like jawline hormonal acne. They have extremely painful periods and hard PMS, even PMDD.
What's PMDD?
So PMS is premenstrual syndrome and PMDD is premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. And it is like similar to PMS, but it's sort of like taking the dial and like turning it up a lot. And PMDD is really associated with feelings of like doom and despair and like depression.
Towards body image specifically, or just in general?
It can be, yes,
Okay,
and
like-
in general.
Whoa, I feel seen. Those symptoms, I feel like I've experienced them throughout my life, and especially the bloating. I dealt with that for years. Like, what do you find when you're unpacking with clients as like a good first place to start?
Yeah. So the first thing that I do with all my clients is we run lab tests. So depending on what someone is dealing with, I'll choose specific labs for them that will help me kind of get to uncover what the root cause is. So when people say like, don't shoot the messenger, right? Like we don't need to shoot the messenger. Our hormones, they're the messengers. So I'm not testing people's hormones most of the time. I am testing like how are their organ systems functioning that create and regulate their hormones, because if their liver function is really low or really high, or their blood sugar is completely high or also low, it tells me like, okay, the root cause here is that their liver is clogged, their gut needs support, and their cortisol levels are completely dysfunctional, and that's the root that we begin to focus on.
Why is that so mass market right now? I feel like this is a conversation every woman is having, every woman complains about. What's going on that we're all dealing with this?
Honestly, I think that a big part of it is awareness. I think that people are talking about it more. And so more and more women are being like, oh, like I'm dealing with that too. Additionally, I think that when you are educated about it, you realize, wait, this actually isn't normal. I've been dealing with this for years. And I just thought like periods are supposed to be painful. I thought that I'm supposed to get bloated after I eat dinner. I thought that it is supposed to be really hard to be a woman. Like none of these things are true. And I think we've just kind of, not to say like just been, I don't know, lied to by the patriarchy about our bodies as women. And like
That's going to be the title, Lied to by the Patriarchy by Dana Ariele.
We needed the hot take, and there it is.
And I think like women are reclaiming their power. They're realizing that they can have choices, and that debilitating period pain and acne and going on Accutane and spironolactone like aren't the only choices you have. You can get to the root cause and heal them holistically.
I want to interject on spironolactone as well. I can't even pronounce it right.
What is that?
So I can tell you this one. So it is an oral medication that is prescribed as an acne, like for women's acne. So it has to be for women.
Similar to Accutane?
No, it doesn't have the same profile of impact that Accutane has in terms of like the side effects I'm familiar with of Accutane. So spironolactone doesn't have that same like photosensitivity, etc. That being said, you could speak to this better. It messes with potassium levels, I want to say, is the specific
receptor.
Yeah.
And
it was actually not created for women's acne. It was created to like lower blood pressure in the elderly. And then a side effect they found out is that it helps female acne. So only women can take it because it messes with your testosterone levels. I'm like literally looking to see if you're going to validate what I'm saying. And I took it for years and didn't even know this. But I bring that up to say, if you're listening and you're taking it and you've been taking it for a while, try going off of it, because I was slowly, but I was amazed. I came off of it and had like, I actually got better skin than even when I was on it. And I didn't even know.
Whoa.
I was so fearful of like going back to having the acne that I had. And I had done so many things to, like holistically to help my skin that like I was already, I ebbed and flowed with it. I went down to lower doses, but now for years being off of it, I'm like, holy shit, I wish I in many ways wish I never did it, but even so, like really power to you. Obviously, you do you, but if you're listening and you're taking it, maybe try weaning off of it slowly, methodically, but you'd be
And
surprised.
if you find that you are still dealing with acne when you come off of it, it's a really good sign that your gut and liver are clogged.
And reach out to
For
me.
those of you listening and not watching, I can vouch Bryn's skin is I'd pay money for it. So
Yes.
I take her advice.
I was gonna say, and microneedling for acne scars, but neither here nor there. Okay, so on the topic of poking holes in the patriarchy, why don't we talk about busting wellness myths? I know there's been topics we've talked about of common misconceptions, so why don't you just rattle some off and then we'll unpack them?
Let's do it. So I think one of the most common misconceptions is that birth control will heal your hormone imbalance or birth control will fix your period.
It's like really relatable as I went on it at like 13 years old.
And it's funny that you say that because I was sexually active when I was like 15, 16, and I wanted to get on birth control, but I didn't feel comfortable talking about that. So I told my doctor I was dealing with debilitating pain and I needed birth control, and so she gave it to me. But that wasn't the reason I wanted it. But anyways,
That's hilarious. That will do it.
hormonal birth control, what it does, and specifically the pill. I was taught that it's kind of like a switchboard, and when you are naturally cycling, your switchboard is on. When you take hormonal birth control, again, the pill, your natural hormone production goes off. And now the only sex hormones your body is receiving is from your pill, some probably synthetic estrogen and progestin. And so essentially all the symptoms that you were experiencing and feeling are now just shut off. Your symptoms aren't gone when you come off the pill, switchboard back on. They're going to still be there unless you've healed all of the underlying root causes.
Can I interject with a question? What does that mean from what I know, there are no long-term studies with it. Are there any repercussions for long-term usage of birth control and how it impacts your ability then to produce these hormones on your own?
I don't know specifically on the studies to produce the hormones on your own, but I know just from, anecdotally, it does take women a long time. It could take from 3 months to 5 years.
Took me 5 years after going off to
No, it's funny.
have any sort of regularity.
Chatted with somebody who it really took 5 years, but it can take up to 5 years to be regular again. And so, it just makes me think like, unless your hormones are functioning properly, you would be cycling. And so that's the repercussion. But then there are tons of other repercussions of taking the pill. One of my most favorite ones is that it shrinks the size of our clitoris, our arousal,
disappointing.
and erectile tissue. By the way,
yank.
it has been shown in trials to shrink the size of our arousal tissue. Additionally, it thins the walls of our vaginas. It also damages our cervical crypts, and our cervical crypts are essentially these like gorgeous branches. Everyone pause podcast, search cervical crypt, look up an image, and it's like in the base of our cervix we have these like little branches inside that produce cervical fluid. And if you've ever been taught about cervical fluid, like your discharge, your cervical mucus, it's normal. It's supposed to be there. It's supposed to change. We can talk about the changes.
We should talk about
We can talk about the
Yeah, let's unpack that one next.
But it damages your cervical crypts, which create your cervical fluid. Cervical fluid is like a buffet for sperm and can keep sperm alive for up to 5 days. So if you're damaging your cervical crypts, it can be really hard to get pregnant for someone who's trying right away because their cervical crypts might be damaged and they're not producing healthy, fertile cervical fluid for sperm to reach an egg.
This is crazy.
That is so
Full circle on the PMDD though. There are two things that they say if you have PMDD is to go back on birth control, the irony there, or to take antidepressants. The fact that those are your solutions for PMDD is dumbfounding to me.
Yeah.
How are there not actually efficacious solutions? It's not even a Band-Aid on the problem. It's like, let me make this problem worse and potentially suppress a part of the issue at hand.
100%.
Sorry.
No, it's so
It's so
true.
true.
And people are just looking for quick fixes, and a lot of conventional choices end up pushing towards quick fixes. And I think that's what's so complicated, because also from everything I've learned of Dana offline and knowing your work is like, it's not a one size fits all. Like people have very different symptoms. People have very different experiences. Even you saying, I would love, like, to the extent you're comfortable, Rachel, unpacking, like what that journey looked like coming off. Cause like 5 years is a long time. And I've had a several year long battle with like re-regulation. So I also understand that. But like, how did you even know that it was that long if it wasn't obvious?
Well, it was obvious. It started with, for 18 months was, sorry, everyone that's listening that is not interested. I suggest I'm going to be
Women.
graphic. Pause, fast forward. This episode may not be for you. I will give that beforehand. My period was not even really coming. And it was when it was obvious. And then it swung the other way. And it was like the however many nearly 20 years that I was on birth control, not getting my period for that period of time. It was like whomever is above wanted me to feel all of the pain for the pain that I miss. And I was just consistently bleeding for a long period of time, severely anemic. And the doctor kept telling me to go back on birth control. And I ended up trying to go back on birth control and had a horrible reaction, which is almost bizarre given I had been on it for the majority of my life. Still to this day, the majority of my life was spent on birth control. And it wasn't until really this past year that things started to normalize. And they're still not normal. My gyno is like, this still, we're hoping gets better, but it's normal enough that I know what to expect more or less. But Bryn, as you know, I'm still not an expert with where I am right now today.
Oh, I
Dana,
get
she'll
it.
tell you offline what happened last week when we filmed.
So we are always on a journey. And I think that also what's really interesting is like, going to someone you know and trust and like I love my gynecologist, but at the end of the day, your health needs to be in your hands and the education around your health needs to be in your hands. So I think that's also such an empowering lesson in these journeys where like things aren't going well and you're aware is, you know, listen to what they have to say, but also do your own research and feel really confident in your decisions. And that's where I think, Dana, you're such a valuable resource. Even like we'll tag it, but follow her on Instagram, all the resources she puts out there. I sent something around to all my friends and my boyfriend last week or 2 weeks ago when you posted about the phases of your cycle and the different emotions and different states you're in. And I'm like, okay, everything I'm swiping through, this is me. Why am I not like more tuned into this? Maybe Kevin could handle me better at times if I was aware. So I think that's just a really important reminder to like do your own research and find resources like you that are just wealth of knowledge and making it less overwhelming.
Dana, will you talk a little bit about eating for your cycle, working out for your cycle?
Absolutely. So this concept is like cycle syncing. So it's a trendy term. You've probably seen it on TikTok or on Instagram, wherever. But cycle syncing really is about aligning your food, your self-care, your mood, and your lifestyle to match where you are hormonally. Again, you could pause this right now and Google women hormonal cycle, like menstrual cycle hormones, and you'll see 4 different hormones rising and falling at different times. And the way that you look hormonally on day 1 versus day 7 versus 14, 21, etc., are completely different. So why would you give yourself the same exact thing every day? That's how men are created. They run on a 24-hour hormone cycle. And if you ever woken up in bed with a man, you know what I mean. Their battery charges, they wake up with high testosterone, and that is healthy. But as women, we run on a 28-day cycle. So to do the same things every single day just don't work for us. Also, frankly, that's quite boring. We're much more dynamic. So I like to talk about the phases of the cycle in terms of the seasons because I think we all can, like, we have our own associations already to the seasons and it helps us to understand. So, day 1 of the menstrual cycle is the first day of bleeding. The first day you get your period. If you spot for a day or 2 before you bleed, that's not your period. The first day of flow, that's your day 1 of your period. When you're in your menstrual phase, this is considered our inner winter. So think about like what are the things that you like to eat and do in the winter? You like to like bundle up, put on the fire, get really cozy, like cancel your plans, hibernate, eat soup, nourish yourself with like bone broth, and like eat chocolate. Done.
Yeah,
Sounds amazing.
I'm in.
The biggest focus diet wise in your menstrual phase is focusing on blood sugar balancing. And the reason for that is because when our blood sugar levels are too high or too low, our body views it as a stressor and that creates inflammation. And our body is already performing internal surgery on itself. Like, if you think about it, that's what happens when we are on our periods. Like, we're incredible. Are you kidding? We perform internal surgery on ourselves every single cycle. And so if you were to go to the dentist and get a tooth pulled, you'd probably lay on your couch instead of going to your HIIT class. So the same thing applies here. We are performing internal surgery and we're depths of winter, we want to rest and we want to focus on blood sugar balance. I like to then think about the next phase of the cycle. We are now entering our inner spring. I like to picture my body like thawing from like the winter, and I'm like emerging and like, about to like frolic in the field. But this rise of estrogen that gives us our follicular phase and our outward extroversion and our energy and connection with others, that's from estrogen. But estrogen rises slowly. So in the beginning of your follicular phase, your
like
inner spring, exactly, ease in. So in the winter, I didn't talk about like workouts, but we want to go really slow. That's your time. I don't really work out in my period. I walk and I stretch. That's it. And then as I enter my follicular phase, I'm moving slowly. So I'm like ramping myself back up, but I'm not diving in full force. And it is a great time for like group fitness, Pilates, strength training. Again, later in follicular, HIIT classes, high impact, etc.
Yoga. That's a good time for
yoga. Absolutely. I feel like yoga is really great for all phases of the cycle because you can really match yourself where you're at.
Rachel loves to hear that. Oh,
I knew I liked you. What a great idea. More yoga.
Everyone go to yoga.
And then in your follicular phase, the biggest dietary focus is in healthy fats. And the reason for that is because this is when our estrogen is beginning to rise, and estrogen and all of our hormones are created from cholesterol, and cholesterol comes from fat. So if we don't have enough fat in our bodies to create cholesterol, to create our hormones, our estrogen is not going to rise. We're not going to ovulate. And that's the whole goal of the menstrual cycle, is to ovulate. We've been taught that like our periods, they're the star of the show, but like it's ovulation. They're the winners. Like the whole point we have a menstrual cycle is to ovulate and to create life, whether or not we want to create life. We want our bodies to want to do that. Follicular phase, then we are entering our inner summer, which I like to say is everyone's secret favorite season. This is when your energy is boosting. This is when all of your hormones hit their peak. This is when we get a surge of testosterone. Yes, women, we get testosterone. That's what gives us our libido. That's when we get horny because we're ovulating. Our body is like, let's make a baby. Whether or not you want one, that's a healthy thing. And this is the best time to like go out and be social, try new things, go on a first date, ask for a raise from your boss, have a difficult conversation with a loved one. This is the time to do your high impact, like push your personal limits at the gym, to, just you are the version of yourself that society values the most.
I love it.
And it's the shortest phase of our whole cycle.
Obviously.
4 days.
Luncheon.
4 days.
Yep, that tracks.
And then after we are in our inner spring, our inner summer, the biggest dietary focus in your inner summer is obviously to continue focusing on all of the nutrients. But this is also the time where you can get away with like some alcohol, with some chocolate, with a little less sleep, with, going out, staying up a little bit later. So still we want to focus on all of our hormones and our nutrients, but this is the time where you can get away with, I don't like to say slipping because there's nowhere to go, but getting out of your like regimented whole foods type of focus.
That is such practical, tangible, like
I love this
takeaways.
season idea.
Especially, I was again talking to Dana right before this about like the go-ness of New York and being stretched way too thin. I'm always texting Rachel saying like, today would be a good yoga day. I need yoga. So all that's to say, like being able to actually tune in to knowing those phases of your cycle and then planning to the extent you can your life around that. At least like if you're going to actively go make the plans, like know when you're going to have that kick of energy. And if you want to plan the like cozy girl night in, movie night, soup, like plan it during the right phase. So I'm literally going to listen back through this and save that section.
It's funny, I've been taught this so many different times, but this is the first time it's really clicked. Bryn knows my cousin Allie. She's all about cycle syncing, and she has explained this to me half a dozen times, but knowing now I can relate, follicular means this is what I should do, but now you can't skip autumn and fall. Like I'm like at edge of my seat, need to hear the end.
And something I forgot to mention with the ovulatory phase in our summer is the big dietary focus is on liver detoxification and liver and gut support. And the reason for that is because our estrogen rose to reach this peak to create ovulation. And after we ovulate, like, where are the hormones going? We want them to come out. So we want to support our liver and support our gut to clear out excess hormones. That's the job of our gut and our liver.
And that's the detoxing. So is that the fall phase?
So then we enter our fall.
Falls next.
Fall's next. We're in our luteal phase now, and this is our inner fall. And I like to say that our inner fall kind of has two different phases within it, or like week 1, week 2 of our inner fall. And it's sort of like in New York City. It's like, we're still kind of like riding high on summer. September hits, October hits, it's still a little warm. We're still enjoying it. And then all of a sudden, we're in the depths of winter. So that we can kind of break up our inner fall into these two different weeks. So week 1, we're still riding on the high from our ovulation. We still have energy to push ourselves at the gym for a few days. We still want to go out and be social. We still want to, partake in our self-care and take care of ourselves. But then as we hit our second week of our luteal phase, this is when like PMS week sits in. This is like, let's say, a week out from getting your period. This is when your hormones are beginning to decline and you are starting to feel the effects. So this is a time where you really want to take it easy on yourself. This is when your inner critic's volume dial goes all the way up. And this is the best time to do extra self-care. You need to take care of yourself, your inner landscape, more than anything in your luteal phase, because it can rock you, especially if you have bad PMS or PMDD. Like, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It can be really tough. So this is when we want to go internal. We want to move slowly. It's a great time for journaling, for going to yoga, for doing like low
For yoga always.
or yoga always. Breath work, stretching, walking, really gentle. Before I get my period, I am okay like going to the gym and lifting weights, but I'm lifting weights much lighter than the ones I lifted 2 weeks ago in my ovulatory phase. And so the biggest dietary focus in your luteal phase is to support progesterone. And progesterone and estrogen, they're like sisters. They can't live without each other, but they have different preferences. They do not like the same things. Estrogen likes it when our blood sugar is low, and progesterone likes our blood sugar a little more elevated. And so we crave carbs. We are endless bottomless pits.
So good.
Our blood sugar is supposed to go up during this time. You're not crazy for being extra starving the week before your period. Your body's meant to consume more. You need to focus on sweet potatoes and squashes and rice and quinoa, like those healthy, magnesium rich, zinc rich foods, starches, and carbs to satiate you, keep your blood sugar a little bit higher, and then you bleed and we are in the winter again.
Full circle.
It's incredible.
Exactly.
It's also just such a level of intentionality too. If you're already someone who's planning your weeks and planning your schedule to like really tune into this, like I feel very inspired because I'm trying to, we had an episode on community and the balance of like finding your community and building that community, but also listening to your energy storage. And I do it more based on burnout than I am doing it on personal awareness of where I'm at in my cycle, and to like shift that so that it doesn't get to the stage of burnout, and actually knowing when I'm ready to go and when I'm not. That is just so helpful.
I think that that's such a good point, because as women, we have this built-in time where we're supposed to rest, where we're supposed to wind down, where we're supposed to retreat and take a break from all of our responsibilities. Like I always say to my clients, if you can take the day off of your first day of your period, if you can literally do nothing, which by the way is really hard, that is like the greatest gift you can give to yourself, to set yourself up for a really awesome cycle, because you pause. Our bodies are meant to stop.
Can I ask another myth on that leads? So I was told that if you don't really take care of yourself during your period, the next one is even worse. Is that accurate?
I think it's more so
I like that.
how well you took care of yourself during your whole cycle than on your period. So people also say that how you feel in perimenopause and menopause is a reflection of how well you took care of yourself throughout your menstruating years.
Oh my
I
goodness.
want you to hear that right now. But yes, it's so true. And I'll give you an example. I am gluten-free. I have extreme gut issues when I eat gluten, specifically in America. But in Europe, I can go and I can eat gluten and I don't have diarrhea for 5 days. I just get other symptoms like painful periods. So I was in Madrid a few months ago. I came back, and a few days later, I got my period, and I am never in pain in my period. I've really focused on balancing my hormones. I know when my period is coming, but I don't experience symptoms. I'm just bleeding. And when I came back and I had this period, I was in so much pain. My back
Wow.
hurt, my uterus was cramping. And why? Because the last cycle, how I was taking care of myself was I was eating a food that I was sensitive to and giving my body a ton of inflammation.
Wow.
In addition to the painful period, I also broke out, which I never do anymore either. And I hurt my back at the gym and it wouldn't heal for like 2 weeks.
That's crazy. Your body was saying, I'm not happy with the
Literally.
situation. It better have been worth it. And I think it was, but like maybe not.
So I think that also goes to say, like,
Yeah.
if you are always dealing with painful periods, if you are always struggling with PMS, like, what is your body trying to tell you? Like,
Mhm.
your menstrual cycle acts as a gauge for your health and your vitality for your whole life. And it also is a really good metric and marker of like how healthy and balanced your hormones are. So if you're dealing with these things, just like listen to your body. It's trying to tell you something.
What are your top tips since you've learned to manage yours? And I know it's like to each their own, and what works for you is probably different than what works for me. But are there some, these are my four go tos that if you're just starting out, definitely give these a whirl?
Absolutely. And I'll go through those in a second, but I think it's important for women to also know that no matter what symptom you are dealing with, like your symptom could be different from mine, from your favorite influencer to your best friend and your cousin. We can all have different symptoms, and those are really determined by our genetics, our lifestyles, our diets. But the root cause of everyone's hormone imbalance is ultimately the same. And it's an imbalance in the communication and the function and the regulation of your hormones through the organ systems that create and balance them. So, my signature program works for everyone, no matter what their symptoms are, because it gets to the root of all of the organ systems that create balance and regulate our hormones. So, the top tips that I would say is prioritize 8 hours of sleep. Hands down.
Is it a matter of getting 8 hours period, or do you really think that it's important to sync up to an earlier sleep schedule? Because I'm someone who is really good about the quantity of sleep, but when I tell you that my Aura Ring told me for all of 2024, my average guess, I want both of you to guess what time it said I went to bed.
I know you're a night owl. You're actually not, but you end up being a night owl.
7:30.
12:01 a.m.
Really?
I was going to sleep the next day on average of all of 2024. Obviously, that's conflated by some probably really late nights over the course of the year, but my point being, I sleep really well. I get good sleep scores. Obviously, it informs me that my timing is not great. But do you think that that is a priority? But do you think that that's like a key priority for me? Like get that shit earlier.
So the biggest reason why I would say yes, we should get that earlier is because our bodies work with the natural rhythms of the earth. So as women, our menstrual cycles are known as the infradian rhythm, and we all know the circadian rhythm, light and dark. And when, sun sets at I don't know, between 6:30, depending on the time of year, and 8, like again, depending on the time of year, that's when we should be winding down. That's when we should be starting to end our days. Midnight, it's called midnight because it's the middle of the night. Like it's supposed to be,
Whoa.
it's supposed to be the middle of the night. And so, yes, I would say it's important to get your sleep earlier. Everyone is different. You might feel like you thrive off of that.
I don't feel like I thrive off of that.
I'd love to hear from someone if they feel like they are thriving off of that. But yes, generally speaking, the recommendation is like around 10 p.m. for bedtime for women.
Something you just called out that also is something that I need to hear, but I'm mindful of, is the reason my bedtime got so late is because I was actually baking in wind down. Like I used to try to go from work to bed and like that just didn't work for me. And so I would slow down, read something, watch something, call someone, and like have more of a wind down. And so that's been really beneficial to quality of sleep. But I think moving that whole thing up, and when you say like when it gets dark, start to think about maybe harder in the winter when it gets dark at 4:30, but like truly just starting to think about what are ways in which you can embody that wind down, even if that means you can't shut your laptop and like go lay in your bed. So I think it's all the pieces working together, but like winding down and also just starting that wind down earlier and setting more intentionality around that is really helpful.
Even something like sun is setting, time to pop on my blue light glasses. I'm dimming all my lights. Overhead lights are off. My lamps are the only ones on.
So good about all of this stuff.
Love this.
It's a
Okay,
biohack
keep going with your
that
tips.
we're
Yeah,
sending.
this is so good.
This is just part 1, guys. Don't worry.
Absolutely. What are other tangible? I love like sleep
Tips.
8 hours. Yeah.
My next big tip is to make sure that you are eating breakfast before drinking coffee. And I want you to eat your breakfast within the first 90 minutes of being awake. The reason for both of these things, the coffee, the 90 minutes, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I want to have in your breakfast, is that this is going to keep your cortisol happy and healthy. And when your cortisol doesn't spike, it also doesn't spike your blood sugar. And this, like, who's anxious in the morning? Like all of us, right?
Yes.
Why are we so anxious in the morning? It's because we feed ourselves with caffeine before we eat food. And by the way, without coffee in the morning and before breakfast, I'm still anxious sometimes too. So for me, I wake up a little anxious in my luteal phase, especially like the week before my period. I don't really feel it other times.
I think I have that too. It's not all the time. It's
Yeah.
sometimes, and it's really intense. It happened to me a couple weeks ago, and I'm like, I have
just need
generalized
sunshine.
anxiety.
I need sunshine. So breakfast, within the first 90 minutes of waking up, I want your breakfast to contain a protein and a fat, and for you to focus on savory breakfasts. If we eat sweet breakfasts, our blood sugar will tend to spike, and it will still act like a cortisol stressor to the body, even though it wasn't cortisol, it was blood sugar. Blood sugar and cortisol, they rise together.
I want to chime in there on sweet breakfast because I used to be a sweet breakfast girl and now I'm a savory breakfast girl. Your preferences will change if you are consistent. And so it doesn't need to be like switching from like your oatmeal with maple syrup and fruit to like eggs, avocado toast, and a whole bunch of leafy greens overnight and never looking back. But the more you prioritize the savory breakfast and more spices and seasonings, so on and so forth, the more your microbiome, yeah, like it really does change. And so it's so interesting because I used to be so tied to like chia seed pudding and like my version of healthy pancakes and oatmeal and all of that. And now like I like it here and there, but I wake up and crave avocado toast, eggs, etc. And so I think that's just a reminder. If you're listening and you're like, I can't give that up, just try to ease in and your body over time will completely
It
calibrate.
probably won't take more than 3 to 5 days.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Love it. More tips.
Give us your best and final. Like, I want a big one.
I would say my best and final tip is do not ignore the wisdom of your menstrual cycle. It tells you so much. Men don't get this like inside scoop look. Like we get a report card every single month on how we're doing, how our body's feeling, how we're doing emotionally, how burnt out we are, or how much we're nourishing ourselves. And we just need to listen. So if you, again, like are constantly feeling a type of way, listen to your body. Like, what is it telling you that you need to do? Is it telling you to rest? Is it telling you to speed up? Is it telling you to nourish? Is it telling you, I have no idea what's going on, I need Dana's help? Like, I have no idea what it's telling you, but are you listening? Like, we just can't ignore this anymore. You shouldn't slap a band-aid on it like hormonal birth control without full research and information from your doctor, which by the way, they might not give you all of the research and information. So do it all on your own too. So don't ignore your menstrual cycle. Listen to the wisdom. Your body's gorgeous and so smart, and it wants to heal. And the last thing I'll say is that I think a really big misconception about hormone balancing is that it takes a village. Like I have to change my whole life if I want to heal my hormones. Like you don't at all. Most women and every single one of my clients are already like healthy people. They take care of themselves. They work out. They're eating well, etc. And they're like, why do I feel like this? Why? Is because it's just tiny little tweaks that are for hormone health. You aren't setting yourself up for your hormones, but when you learn how to, you realize like you don't actually have to change that much. You just have to do it in a type of way that actually supports your hormones.
I love that. That's beautiful. Makes it so accessible.
It is so accessible. The example of like different workouts. It's like if you're doing all of those workouts already, just timing them up and like it's a little coordination that goes such a long way.
And one thing I do in my yoga practice, which I know is unique to me probably or my situation, so I'm not saying that it's, you can do it in your HIIT classes, but when I am in a certain phase, I'm like handstanding, I'm like 4 chaturangas. And then today, for example, I didn't do a single chaturanga. I got to Shavasana early. I laid in pigeon a little bit longer. And any yoga teacher will be totally okay with that. And I appreciate it. Again, it's a little unique to yoga, but I do yoga throughout my cycle, but I tweak my practice based on how I'm feeling.
I love that. It's like the example with strength training and going with lighter
Yes,
weights
with
or
the
doing
weight.
body weight. It's just, yeah, listening. It's so good. I like that last piece of advice. I think we're quick to normalize, to your point on bloating and acne and all those things, and just say those are normal and they don't have to be. And you don't have to feel like you're in suffering. So, Dana, you're such a wealth of knowledge. We love to
Yeah,
end
this
our
was so fun.
episodes with final 5 questions. Think of it as one word or a few words, and we'll just rattle them off. So, what is something that you can't live without?
My glasses, because I'm blind, which is why I want
I love
my
that.
basic.
I love that. I love the honesty. What keeps you grounded?
My sister, and I guess both of my sisters, but specifically my sister who I'm closer in age with, she's my mirror, and she'll just, no one else is as blunt as her to me. No one else will say it just how it is.
That's incredible to have. I love how many people, when we ask this question and the next question, say a lot. We've gotten a lot of sisters and family members. So, shout out family. Who do you admire most?
This is like such a hard question.
Whoa, we're almost just all over.
My painting almost just. Can you just say it again?
Who do you admire most?
This is like the hardest question you've asked me the whole time.
You don't have to have an answer. I always think if someone asks me, I don't have. Mine changes all the time. Pretty much based on someone I'm reading about or.
Yeah, that's so true.
That's
It always
okay.
is. Okay, so right now, who am I reading? I'm reading a beautiful book by Laura Owens. It's called Her Blood is Gold, and it will definitely help you revere and honor your menstrual cycle in beautiful ways. And just like she writes in poetry, it's not meant to be poetry, but it's really so beautiful. And
I
Love that.
What makes you feel wealthy?
time.
That was a good answer.
Also, ditto, that's so hard.
Mhm.
And finally, what is something that few people know about you?
Should have sent me these ahead of time.
People have asked that, but I like that.
I know what we can end with. What's the secret to your hair? For those of you that can't see, her hair looks like the most gorgeous blowout.
It's also
Tell us the
styling.
secret of how you do your hair.
So, have you seen the like viral TikTok tool? It's called a wavy top.
Dana, I'm like a boomer. No, I haven't seen the TikTok. Explain it to us old folk.
It was a $35 thermal brush, and it's changed my life.
Send us the link.
Yes.
Everyone, they're gonna, yeah.
Dana, where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, at Dana Ariele, DANA.ARIELE. And that's where I am most of the time. If you want to get on my newsletter, shoot me a message. And
she's incredible.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
This was so resourceful. I cannot wait to share this one. And I just think there's going to be tidbits for everyone. So we love it.
Definitely.
Yay.
See you all next time.
Bye.